Manny, it's great to see you today and have you as part of Mind Your Own Business. You know, you're a member of Vistage, longtime member. You clearly are an executive interested in personal growth. Help us learn a little bit more about you.
Sure thing. So I am a mechanical engineer by education, and I grew up in a small town on the U.S.-Mexican border, and really made a point of just a lot of kids in that community to get out of that space and start to explore the world. So I came to the University of Arizona to Tucson. I got my degree in mechanical engineering, spent some time here as an engineer, and then really got an amazing bug. I got bitten by the sales and marketing world. I was asked to be basically a sales engineer of an organization, a company called National Instruments. And that was the beginning of the beginning for me. So I understood what the sales process really was and why it's so important. And I spent a lot of time helping both startups, small, medium-sized companies, as well as even Raytheon was one of my top customers. And I fell in love with the idea of giving people the tools that they need in order to help them grow their business. And what I really learned over my time being involved with all these organizations is that those tools really come in a lot of forms. In the beginning, I was selling software and hardware to help them on doing their own product development. And what I do now, in part, is to help companies understand how to, in what direction they should take their business.
Yeah.
So I like to use the analogy of a ship. If running a ship means you've got to understand the sails and the sails, not the sails, the galley, the navigation, you have all those things. And what we really do is provide the direction of where they should go towards. Understanding trends, looking in the future, and really uncovering what is oftentimes a much more simple event and occurrence that they can expand upon so they can launch their business in that direction.
Yeah. So now Spark Partners has sort of a unique product and viewpoint on business. Can you tell us a little bit about Spark Partners and specifically the way you think about business?
Absolutely. So for me, as being part of the business community for a long, long time, I am very much a student of sales and marketing, right? I've explored it for my entire professional career, except for 1 year when I was an engineer. And what I recognized from that in the end was that if you have a product that nobody wants to buy, then it doesn't matter how many sales and marketing efforts you put into that, it's not going to sell. And I keep this on my desk because it's a great example of that, which is this glorious Sony Walkman, which back in the day was the cat's meow, man. This thing had a radio, it was waterproof, it was amazing. But if somehow you were to activate all the sales and marketing people in the world today, if you had a magic button that would turn everybody on to sell that, you would not get traction because it's something that nobody wants to buy anymore. It's out of trend. And so at Spark Partners, we talk about fully understanding your customer, understanding who your competitors are and what they're doing, and above all, understand and learn how to navigate trends.
Yeah. I mean, so many of us don't know what we don't know. And as a business owner, I can remember lots of blind spots that, gosh, if I'd only had somebody to help me see it, it would have been much more beneficial to the company. I mean, how do you work with someone like me, a business owner, to help me really understand my product, my services, my customers, and if I'm in trend or not?
Right. So it actually goes back in part to that sales process. The first thing that needs to happen is that you as a business owner or executive need to be ready to receive that feedback. Oftentimes as business owners or executives, we want somebody to come in and give us the answer. And when the answer isn't what we expect, we push them away.
Yeah.
So there has to be a healthy dose of humility, and you've got to be authentic. You've got to be transparent and vulnerable. Those things are wildly underestimated how important they are. So number one, you've got to be ready for it. Number two, we then take an exploration, a walk through your business and understand where you've been successful, only to then go and understand where your customers are going. A lot of times people, and this is a dirty word in my dictionary, is focus on your core. When I hear that, it makes me a little bit nauseous, because what in fact what we're saying is that whatever got you to be successful in the past, stick with it. Okay, covered wagon people, they got this thing called the automobile coming down the road. Forget about that. Focus on your core. Focus on the canvas tops. Focus on those wheelwrights. Focus on the horse stuff, right? No, it doesn't work that way. You've got to understand what your customers are wanting. And then from that, when we have the vulnerability and you've got your customer knowledge, then we start looking at trends and what's happening, not only in your direct market, but in the world. There's trends happening across the pond in either direction that are going to affect your business today, tomorrow, or next month. It's happening. It's no longer a closed system. It's very much an open system. And you've got to be aware of when things happen in the world. I mean, even like the tariffs that happened a couple of years ago had effects on local people that, hey, we only sell it to, we're a brewer, we make beer. Why are we affected? Well, it turns out that the big totes that the hops come in are made in China. And now that they're double the price, the people that make the hops need to up their price. Anyway, it's all connected. And then to round out your question is, after we have you being vulnerable, after we understand your customers, your trends, we got to look at your competitors. And then lastly, we've got to start planning from the outside in, a constant recurring event where we're always looking outward before we make decisions that affect our inward state.
If I could, I want to just talk about two pieces of what you just said. The first is ego, and you can see this, gosh, if you take, US sports teams, there's often owners who believe their way is right and don't listen to others, the value of perspectives. How do I get past that as a business owner? I mean, because, I'm successful, what I did before got me here. So I may love my core. I found that when I was in the media business, our owners knew what was up ahead to some degree. They loved the core. So how do you battle that as an executive and be open enough to sort of receive the message?
If you are a citizen of this world as a human being, you have the ability to be vulnerable and take that ego and push it aside. So it has to be a mindful self-exploration. And it doesn't have to be hocus pocus. You don't have to go to some crazy retreat in the mountains or whatever. Although if you like the mountains, it helps to walk around in the mountains. It helps to spend time with family and really reflect upon the things that really matter. And if you peel away all of the ego, you realize that success is your duty, and as part of that, you've got to take a break from yourself. And it's very difficult in the world of CEOs. The reason why we are at the top is because we have this amazing belief in ourselves that's able to knock down barriers. And here's the magic piece you're asking about. The biggest barrier we've got to oftentimes knock down is ourselves. Mm-hmm. Your mind is your worst enemy. My mind is my worst enemy. And we've got to understand that. And there's lots of tools out there that can help you take a step back. I've got one story about that I'll kind of mention real quick about somebody who ran a family business. Their grandfather started this business, and I won't go into details of what it was, but it was something that's been around for a while, an 80-year-old company. And they were very resistant to change because they always felt this, well, what would grandpa think if we started going this new direction? Yeah. What would grandpa think? He started this, and now we're going to be changing our stripes completely. Hell no, I'm not going to do that. But what they didn't realize is back in the day, grandpa was an innovator and he bucked the system. And by the grandson not bucking the quote unquote system, he was actually going against what his grandfather really, really aligned with.
Yeah.
He eventually did change, by the way, and they're still around.
It's an interesting story, and I think one a lot of us can relate to. The second piece that you talked about, I was reminded of a quote that's attributed to Wayne Gretzky, where you've got to skate to where the puck is. And that takes some faith, some vision. How do you help me, a CEO, business owner, figure out where that puck's going and how to get there?
Absolutely. So we live in a time and world right now where there's a tremendous amount of data that's available. Demographic data. I mean, you can buy reports left and right of all sorts. But it really takes an observation. Just like a coach has a keen eye to look at the way the player is aligning themselves, like for taking a golf swing. They can look at the person, they can say, you know what? Based on the way that they're standing, they're going to slice the ball every single time, or they're not hitting it with full power. And that perspective can be developed because that coach wasn't born a golf guru. They actually developed it. In the same way, you can develop to be a trend watcher. You can understand how things in the world affect your business. And it just takes, it starts with putting yourself in the seat of the customer. When you sit down and you really throw everything off, bias, we talk about bias a lot in with Spark Partners in our course and in our podcast, is removing bias. We all have bias. So don't do it in a vacuum. Bring a bunch of people around the table, and not just your buddies, people that disagree with you, people that piss you off. Those are the people that you really want to have around the table to form your trend advisory group. And that in itself will add a tremendous amount of foresight to thinking about how everything's connected.
Yeah. Now you're a sales and marketing guru, and I want to try to separate those two and talk about them because we got good advice for business owners and CEOs. Get out of our own way, be open, be vulnerable, and really take a look at what our customers want and what trends are. Many times sales leaders are frustrated by the products, the organization. What have you found there, and what is your advice for those folks?
The advice really has to start with what is the value that's being delivered by that organization? What's the product or service that's being delivered to your customer base? And oftentimes, VPs of sales and frustrated CEOs and owners, you want to throw all the blame towards the sales personnel, right? They want to say, hey, man, you're not selling, so we're going to fire you. We're going to bring somebody else. Or they always blame the salespeople, but they don't understand that a spear without a stem is just a paperweight, right?
Yeah.
If sales is the tip of the spear, you've got to have the shaft, you got to have the power behind it to make a kill, right? If you just have the tip of the spear and you throw it at a damn mammoth, it's not going to do anything to it. Yeah. You got to have the whole team behind the spear. And again, I go back to this. If your organization is selling a Sony yellow Walkman in 2021, you've got a problem. I say that, tongue in cheek, but you'd be surprised how many people today are digging their heels in and saying, you know what, I'm never going to have an app. You know what, we're never going to have an HTML based whatever. We're just going to do this and we're going to screw the world. This is what we provide. And if they don't want it, they can go away. Well, what happens is then you will go away as well.
Scary words. So if I'm a sales manager, I think I get it. How can marketing executives help the company? What is their sort of role in it, and how do you help them?
Yeah, so it really, and this actually also ties into sales. So here's the interesting thing is about the sales and marketing relationship. They're sort of like stepbrothers, they like each other, but they kind of don't. The sales is really close to the customer. They're interfacing with the customer daily, but they're measured on how much they sell. So they might have a tendency to say things or push things in a different way than marketing would want. Marketing is all about awareness and really wants to be close to the customer, but they also have the ear and the purview of whoever's delivering the value, like the operations people. So there's this tug of war that happens between the two, where you get sales blaming marketing, marketing blaming sales, when in fact they should be working a lot closer together. And the marketing personnel and sales personnel should know and cover what the other ones are doing. This is not a competition. There's always this sort of inherent competition between the two. They should be working hand in hand. And they have to understand that the brand, it's not that marketing is telling sales what to sell. It's that sales is telling marketing what the customer's asking to be sold. And marketing is taking that and crafting it and making it digestible and feeding it back to the market.
And many times sales professionals and marketing professionals have pretty big personalities. I mean, they're leading an organization. You're saying they need to be more collaborative, more interdependent, and surround the customer, if you will, and listen without an agenda. Am I right on? What would you add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely say that. And I would also say that there's got to be a lot of agility in their ability to react to the market and react to each other. There's been instances I've sold, like I mentioned, I've sold lots of things in my day. I mean, I've ran sales teams that have sold $250 million worth of sales, worth of services and products. And me personally, I've sold about $50 million worth. And what happens is if you see something happening in the industry and you feed it up the chain of command from the marketing to whoever's delivering the product or service, that has to be quick. You've got to react quick. We were selling a piece of equipment one time in a brand new space, and we were kind of taking our time because we thought we had the time. And I went in to talk with the customer, and I realized and I learned that they were talking to one of our competitors who was doing the exact same thing. So I went to my marketing people, I went to the operations, and I said, hey, this is happening. And they said, it's just conversation. They're just talking. Well, 9 months later, we still didn't have a product, and they bought the competitor's product, basically closing us out of a fairly large opportunity.
So this transition, I mean, you're asking for humility, an open mind, suspending judgment, collaboration. I'm going to give you a magic wand. So you've got a magic wand, and what you got to use it for is pick a company and implement your philosophy. And we'll talk about that a little more in a minute, because I've listened to your podcast and understand kind of the way you help others, and it's fascinating. But if you were able to get rid of all that startup, what would change at a company once you touched it with that wand? If it happened immediately, we go from here to here.
Well, I think that magic wand would activate a cultural mindset shift in all the people in that company, as well as the direction of the company. And then what you would see happening very, very quickly, especially if they're aligning with emerging trends, is you would see a significant ease in what they're doing. They're not having to fight guerrilla warfare. They're going to be gliding down that river. We like to use the example of trends being a river. You can jump in your canoe and you can go up the creek there. You can go across, but you're still going to be pushed down. And so if you really want success and you want alignment and you want relevancy for the long term, you point your boat right in the direction of where that river's going.
Yeah. So as you think about Spark Partners, and we've got our audience listening, tell me what your best customers look like. Who should reach out and talk to you and your team?
Sure. So the first thing I'll say is that it doesn't matter the size of the company. We've seen success in a $500,000 a year company. We've seen success in a $500 million a year company. I mean, it really, it makes no difference. What really makes the biggest difference is having that growth mindset, realizing that you're stuck. You've got flat growth or negative growth, and you've got some decisions to make on what direction you should take your company. That is the best time to activate Spark Partners. Well, we come in, we can do either a coaching, we can do some assessments, which is all a lot of handcrafted, high touch. Or we also have a course called Think Innovation, which will arm your executive team or the decision makers with the right information that's been distilled down from Adam Hartung and my career. Adam is my business partner. He is a Harvard grad. He worked alongside a guy named Clayton Christensen. You can Google him. This guy is the person who coined the term disruptive innovation. And while Clayton went back and did, remained with the academic world, Adam went out and practiced what he preached, he learned. And from that point till now, it's been about 25 years. He's been able to distill down and understand why so many companies succeed. So many companies fail while very few succeed. And he came to that by doing a giant longitudinal study, looking at 12,000 companies that even today, and realizing why some succeed and why some fail.
Now, it sounds like if I were going to do, let's just say the training, it would be smart for me to get, as an owner, my sales, my marketing, my operations team to do this together, because it's going to then, we'll have a common language, et cetera. Is that an option? And if so, tell me the benefits of that.
Sure. So yeah, there's, in addition to the individual course, there's also a cohort model, which will allow all those people you just mentioned to take it together. And even though it's online on demand, we come in the beginning, the middle, and most importantly, in the end, where we help them to implement what they've learned into their company. Now, I want to say something that is very, that needs to be made clear, is that we are not an operating system a lot like EOS might be. I think EOS is a great tool for a lot of companies, and I think that it has to exist, as they say, as a single operating system. What we do with our course is if EOS is a high performance engine, Spark Partners Think Innovation Masterclass or course is a supercharger. So we make small modifications to what they do. And by doing so, we're able to get them to align with where the market is going. If EOS is a high performance yacht, we are the lighthouse that is pointing them in the right direction.
When you think about a business owner, you talked about I'm struggling to get my products and service sold. What's my first step or my second step? What advice would you give me about here's what you need to do next?
Right. First thing is, like we talked about before, throw away your ego. Realize that you haven't done a good job of aligning your business to where the market's going. And that's hard to do. But get over it, do it. The second thing you need to do is you need to open your eyes to what your customers really want. So the definition of innovation is giving people what they want in new and better ways. That's it. It has nothing to do with technology, although oftentimes there is a lot of innovation in technology. But if you think it's something as simple as, or as complex as Uber is basically a really simplistic dating app that hooks up people that are driving with people that need to be driven places. They sprinkle in some insurance and some business stuff on the top. Boom, you've got a company. Very, very innovative company, minimal technology. There's kids in high school that are doing more complex apps than what Uber is. But why are they successful? Because they landed on a trend, right? And there's these companies that keep on innovating. My favorite company that I talk about constantly is Netflix. Netflix, I remember when they first came out, Blockbuster was around and I heard about this. Well, you can get DVDs mailed to you. Okay, I checked it out, loved it. Canceled my Blockbuster account. Actually, I didn't cancel, I just let it die. Eventually Blockbuster died and I was getting the DVDs delivered in the mail. And then I heard that they were going to be discontinuing that and they were going to something else. And I'm like, what? Well, what happened is they made the decision to close down 5 of their 7 warehouses and take all that money in cash and bring on 150 engineers, put them in a basement and work on something called streaming. The investment community went crazy. They hated the idea. What are you doing killing the cash cow? And, the founder said, no, we're going to do this. 18 months later, lo and behold, streaming was born. So they went from DVD delivery to streaming. And then many years after that, when streaming became ubiquitous, they did it again. They became a production studio. And guess what? They're doing it once again. They're becoming they're going to have an esports or gaming component. And all the while, their value proposition has been, we deliver entertainment. Hasn't changed. Their value delivery's changed from the US mail to the Ethernet and Wi-Fi to the hearts and minds of people through production, having a production studio, to now doing gaming. And in 18 months, they're going to have a gaming platform that's going to continue their onward, upward climb.
Great example. And I've been to the Netflix studios in Albuquerque, and they're amazing. I mean, it is an amazing place. So many of us don't really realize what's behind that couple of clicks of our remote.
No, not at all.
So a couple last questions. If I wanted to get started, I know you've got podcasts because I listen to them. How do I gain access to you and what you do to learn more, to connect with you? What's the right way to go about that?
Sure. Yeah. Let me talk a little bit about the podcast, because there's a great resource right there that'll give you some insights into the way we think and the decisions that we make in our own business and the companies that we support. So our podcast is called the Business Trendsetter Podcast. You can find it on our website, sparkpartners.com, or on your favorite platform like Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever. And so those are all available. You can just look it up, Business Trendsetter Podcast, and that'll give you some insights on contemporary things happening in the world and our view on how to capitalize on them. So having the confidence to make decisions is oftentimes as important or maybe more important than the decision itself. So you've got to arm yourself with the right information so you feel confident making that bold move in that new direction. So our website, sparkpartners.com, we also have the ability we have a couple of coaching clients we take on. It's not what we do for a living. And I want to be really mindful of that. There's a lot of folks out there that are coaching clients. They're coaching clients all the time. It's all they do. And that's great. But for us, it's a matter of really cherry picking our projects so that we're able to deliver value in other ways. We've got a course called Think Innovation, which is a online on-demand course, which gives you a tremendous amount of all of these resources we just talked about. And so you can reach out through there. And we also do events. Adam's been featured on dozens and dozens of keynotes, and he's done lots of conferences. I've done a lot less. And in my domain is a lot in building sales and marketing teams that communicate together. Company culture is one of these things that's sort of in vogue these days, at least talking about it. Mm-hmm. And it's harder to do than people think into evolving and putting in a company culture that works together.
Yeah. And so it sounds like if I'm a sales, marketing, business owner, CEO, and I'm willing to say, I may not know everything that I should know. There might be a blind spot out there. I'm struggling. This is a really good move to make. Check out the podcast, learn a little more, connect with you and your team, and potentially find that new path to success.
Absolutely. And the course we have is I mean, I'm talking about a truly valuable thing for all business owners. When we looked at deploying it to the market, we thought long and hard whether or not we should value at the $10,000 that it's really worth, or giving it for $1,000, which is what it is. It's $997, which gives you more access to the course, because the course talks about what innovation is, why it's important, how to build it into your company culture, how to look at trends, how to look at your competition. We talk about bias and how to avoid it. We talk about outside in planning versus inside out. A lot of the modalities that are out there now are inside out. They're looking in the rearview mirror to plan where you're going, where that's not how it should work. We give some pretty amazing case studies about success stories and the decisions that they made. And we also have some very powerful tools in something we called blank space teams. So how do you as an organization decide to go in a new direction? You create a blank space team. And this blank space team is charged with looking at new opportunities and new directions. And if you look, we actually base this off of Sir Richard Branson and the way he operates, and we added a bunch of other things to it. So there's a methodology and a modality to be able to go in a new direction, and we give you all those tools in our course.
Yeah, I've been a part of a blank space team once, and it was amazingly successful when you can take time and suspend your judgment, like you were talking about, and you really look at customers and what they could really use from you, if you will, to meet their needs. Magic happens.
Yeah, and if you look at the biggest the biggest, most successful companies today, the ones that are the most innovative, they all have some form of a blank space team. And the beauty of blank space teams is no matter whether they fail or succeed, they all succeed in telling you where you should be going. When Amazon was trying out a store without tellers, like cashiers, you just walk in, pick up what you wanted, and walk out, and everything had RFID tags on it. They went full bore. They went and created a whole store, and they didn't do anything half-assed. They just went full bore to see if it would work, and it didn't work. It didn't work. It didn't show a resounding yes. But guess what? They learned a lot about the process, and they'll likely try it again in another 18 months and see if it works. And Facebook's done the same thing, and Google's done the same thing. I mean, remember Google Plus?
Right.
Their little like social media thing. It didn't work. But guess what did work? Gmail. Gmail was part of somebody's blank space team that came out of nowhere, and now it's prolific. And Facebook, same thing. And if you look at why Facebook makes certain decisions, I mean, why would they buy WhatsApp? What's happening there? Why'd they buy Instagram that had zero revenue? Well, they wanted to proliferate their advertising on another platform, and they did it.
I really appreciate your time today. Any last words for our audience?
I really appreciate the time as well, Stephen. This is a good opportunity. For me, I'm a 100% capitalist, but I do have a soft heart. And for me, when I see a business that's struggling, I had a business that was struggling a number of years ago, and it was a very painful, very lonely situation where I didn't really have a lot of people to reach out to. Luckily, I did have my Vistage group. Certainly, you can attest to this being a Vistage chair. For me, that was a great resource for me. Unfortunately, and fortunately for me, at the time, my company was not salvageable. And it came to the point where I didn't want to save it. I was done. It was too much, too heavy for me to carry, and which then allowed me to do what I'm doing now, which is to affect and really support and empower a lot more organizations and leaders than I was being able to do before. So yeah. I thank you for your time as well, and thank you for setting this up. Any questions, you can email me directly at manny@sparkpartners.com. And just mention this, Mind Your Own Business podcast here, or a live event, whatever you want to call it. So thank you.
Sure. And I really appreciate your time. I mean, what you're doing is so important and impactful that I would suggest any listener, viewer, act on this if this resonates with you. So with that, I know you've got a lot going, and so we'll say goodbye until next week.
Thank you very much, Stephen.
All right, ciao.
Cheers.